It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes
Hey everybody,
and Google
welcome to
Play.
UGA Sports Live Podcast here at Champy's on Baxter Street. My name is Rodney Nabulsi. I'll be your host for the next hour, joined by Jake Roos, the recruiting super predictor of UGAsports.com, the guy who tells you who's going to commit to Georgia weeks and months before it ever happens. Then, of course, Jim Donnan, who knows something about football. He knows enough to be in the College Football Hall of Fame as a Hall of Fame coach. The only man to have led the NCAA in passing offense and rushing offense. He is not a one-trick pony. He also told us last week that Josh Braun will be committing to the University of Georgia.
Put a check by it.
Put a check, yes. And sure enough, late last night while I was at the gym working out, all of a sudden you get the heads up and tell everybody, Josh Braun out of Florida.
Yeah, and I just need to give you a little love here. I mean, we get on your butt so much about behind the scenes, but, you know, one of the reasons I hope that people listen to is get a little scoop, but it also look into the future. That's what you always want in any employee, be able to pick out things and not just tell everybody what they know, but what they don't know. But really, for two of the four linemen that we got, you told us about a couple of weeks before they even surfaced, you know, going back to the kid at Houston and now Braun, you know, the fact that his family had tech ties and we were in on him. And I don't know what you've been eating or smoking, but it's pretty good, man.
I think he's from the future. I really do.
But really, we got to give you some love because
Well, you also told us Tate Ratledge was going to commit long before anybody said. I mean, we knew that Georgia was in a good spot, but you called it. You said, yeah, he's in this class. Him and the tight end
Gilbert.
Yeah,
there's a lot of difference.
Both those guys.
But seriously, there's a lot of difference between the day the guy's going to commit, you know, and it gets down to the nitty gritty and people, hey, I'm going to predict that so-and-so's coming to wherever it is. But you get out there pretty early on and put yourself on a limb, man. That's good. So we're going to keep you for one more week.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think it was very impressive. A lot of people, when you put out the information that he's 6'6",
6'6", 360 pounds.
Well, think about this. This is Josh Braun, offensive tackle, who plays tennis, by the way, at a high level. He's not just out there.
State level in the state of Florida.
And which is a loaded state for tennis. Here's a guy who at 360 pounds can run back and forth across that baseline. That's impressive.
Can you imagine, though, there's a ball that's hit, and, of course, I play a lot of tennis, and
yes, you do.
He hits the ball, and a little bitty kid on the other side calls it out, and Josh walks up to the net and says, are you sure?
No,
Are you
I'm sorry.
sure?
It was in by a foot.
No, I got to tell you, it was funny last night, actually. I posted a tweet, retweeted myself, actually, from a story I did a couple weeks with him a couple weeks back. And Dash came on our group chat, and he said, hey, just so you're aware, you put 360 pounds on that tweet. And I said, yeah, no, that's right. And he goes, oh my God, are you serious?
Well, I mean, it could be easy typo. You know, the 3 and the 6 are kind of close on one of those.
You know, he's going to probably trim down a little bit. I mean, just from a strength gains, but just the fact we talked about these guys throwing the shot put and the ability to move and play basketball, but it takes some really good feet to do what he does. And I had a little inside scoop on this kid all along because B.J. Cohen, a kid that played for me at Marshall and was an All-American defensive end, and he's actually working down at Swanee as an assistant coach. And the thing that I liked about when I asked him about Braun, he said, Coach, first of all, he's a great kid.
Yeah.
He said anybody would want to have a guy like him on your team. Plus, he said everything's ahead of him. You can't believe the future he's got with the size. And, of course, his brother did well at Tech and now transferred to Texas. But, you know, we're just building a fortress there with those tackles. I mean, and you add Broderick Jones in there. It's just really good. And we got room for one more, I understand.
Yeah, I believe that's going to be the case.
Well, that's what we were discussing last week because we said what's the order, pecking order
Sure.
if you're going to take a commitment, and you said Josh Braun first, so you got him.
The soonest to decide, and that was the main reason, I think. You got the feeling that he wanted to go ahead and get this decision out of the way. I didn't know exactly when. He told us when we went to see him a couple weeks back that he was planning to do it after the Georgia official, but he wasn't even sure if he was going to be done by then. Obviously, he decides to pull the trigger a little earlier.
I like what he told me because I called him last night, and to your point, Coach, he was it's the first time I've spoken to him, but this kid is obviously very, very well educated, very a smart young man, fun to talk to. And I said, well, why now? It's 10:20 at night, on a Monday night. I'm like, why now? He goes, well, I really wanted to get it out of the way before my visit this weekend. I want to have fun on my visit. I don't want to be worrying about the commitment. So he knows he's coming for a visit. He doesn't want I don't want to say high pressure sales tactic, but he's like, look, I know I'm going there. Might as well get it out of the way now, 10 o'clock at night, and just go enjoy my trip. And think about it, he's coming in with a couple major targets this weekend.
Well, his basic deal is going to be to walk around beside Milton and hold his hand.
So he's got a 5-star.
Can I open the door for you like I'm getting ready to open this hole?
Yeah. Just let him and Tate Ratledge just carry him on his shoulders all week.
Yeah, with Broderick Jones up front.
How about that pick of Tate and the kid from Houston?
Oh, Akinola, yeah.
That
absolutely.
was pretty strong. And then Coach Pittman in the middle. But just can't say enough about the job that Coach Pittman's done. And also just the staff as a whole, because the people behind the scenes, you really don't know what all's going on. Your offensive line coach recruits a guy, but, Kirby's working them. The other coaches, when the high school coaches come in, do a great job. I know when BJ, the guy I was telling you about, came up to watch practice for a couple of days, Trey Scott just took him under his wing and took him to all the meetings and worked out for BJ to be around on the field and watch the drills and all. I mean, and, certainly they knew that Braun was a prospect, but they do that for all the high school coaches.
Absolutely.
And it's a very relaxed feeling among the people that even though the practices are intense, you got Marshall Malco walking around with them, telling them about everything, and it's just you feel good after the fact. And now we got this camp now for underclassmen and a lot of linemen. You just get a good chance to see these guys in the future. And I saw that big old kid that we talked about from down in South Georgia up here a couple days ago.
Oh, Marius Mims.
Holy
out
smoke.
of Bleckley, yeah.
I mean, seriously.
I remember when he walked in the Rivals camp, my eyes about popped out of my head.
Tell him about his size.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a kid who's a very legitimate 6'7", probably almost 320 pounds right now as a junior. And this is not a kid. I pointed this out about Braun last night when people were questioning the 360. This is not a kid who's carrying 315 poorly.
No, you got the height and the leverage. But, if that kid walked as usual, we're going to use the word room. If Mims walked into any room in the country, college or pro, he would be.
No doubt.
They would say, hey, come on in, man. You look good.
I mean, he's not quite as striking as Ben Cleveland was at that age, but it's in that same mold. It's in that same Isaiah Wilson mode. Xavier Truss, there is and I don't want to pigeonhole these guys and say body type, but there's a certain look, a certain feel that all these guys Georgia's getting has, and it's not anything I've seen before, and I've been doing this a long time.
I could see him joining the fold here. He just looks really comfortable up here. And
we had a great note on him over at UGASports.com today from Chad Simmons. He was down, had a chance to meet with Amarius, and walked away from that saying, I really like where Georgia's sitting with this one.
Well, I got to put in a commercial here. If you get a chance to go to UGASports.com, that's where we all work. It's 27 cents a day, $99 for the year. You would have gotten to read yesterday's War Room. This is where Jake and Trent, our two recruiting guys, and sometimes myself and Anthony Dasher, we put in all of our off-the-record stuff. So the War Room is when somebody tells you something, but you can't quote them because, they're not allowed to go on the record about that. Or they say, hey, here's what I'm hearing. It's all our scuttlebutt. Some of it is unadulterated rumor that we think is worth passing along that, has some feet to it. Some of it is pure information that we know for a fact, but we just can't put it into a story because we can't. Sometimes our sources are too good. So if you got a chance to go to the War Room, you got to read about 16 different guys, one of which was Josh Braun, and Jake saying, hey, I expect this kid to come to Georgia. Of course, last week on the show, Coach Donnan said, hey, I feel good about it. Put him in the check mark. He's getting him. So, in other words, if you were surprised last night at 10:20 or whatever, you're obviously not reading the site or watching the show because this was not a surprise. To that point, we've got updates coming on a lot of other guys. You need to be a member of UGASports.com. And if you're not a member yet and you're only watching the show, you need to support our sponsors. That's Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Cable East, and 365 Game Day. Right now, we are on 365 Game Day's Facebook page. Give them a like. Trust me, it's worth it. And if you need gear from 365 Game Day, you need a new Georgia shirt like the black one Coach is rocking there, you need a new hat, need any of that Georgia gear for the upcoming season. We're only 85 days away. It's going to be here soon. You need to go ahead and get your gear now, and 365 Game Day has stuff that you won't find anywhere else. Trust me on that if you go through their page. And Father's Day is coming up. You got to get something for Dad. Today's Tuesday. Order your stuff, get it shipped here in time.
Yeah,
when is Father's Day?
Sunday.
This Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. So, hop in there. Make sure you get the express shipping this week.
And if you want to treat Dad, bring him by here to Champions. I will tell you, this plate here, the sausage, pickle, and cheese plate, I'm not saying it's the best thing they do, but it's one of the best things they do.
It's hard to really pick out the best.
It is. It's like picking your favorite child.
It's like
start with
between
the chicken.
Broderick Jones, Tate Ratledge, Akinola, and Josh Braun. I mean,
you got to start with the chicken, though.
You're not missing.
Now, I'm just saying, you want to bring Dad in, you start with this plate, and then all of a sudden he brings you the chicken, and Dad is a happy camper. What can you buy Dad that he doesn't have already except a 365 Game Day gear or a subscription to UGAsports.com? But what does Dad like the most? A good meal.
Chicken.
Bring us some fried chicken. Hey, this is the man who's worked his tail off for you. It's Sunday Chicken Day. Fried chicken on a Sunday, traditional because it's the best. So do that.
All right, I wanted to hop in because I wrote this last night, and I just thought it was an absolutely wild thing to write. And as I was putting it together, I said,
what was it? Now I lay me down to sleep.
Yeah. I said, this is crazy. I said, I can't believe I'm writing this sentence. So Josh Braun's commitment last night makes him the fourth offensive line commit in this class. That means a third of your class right now, 12 commits, 4 of them offensive linemen. All 4 of them members of the Rivals 250.
Means they're the best 250 players in the nation.
Regardless of position.
Right.
All right. You've got a 5-star tackle, a Rivals 100 tackle, a Rivals 250 offensive guard, and a Rivals 250 offensive tackle. Those guys check in respectively. Josh Braun, 6'6", 360 pounds, the number 248 player in the nation. Akinola Ogunbiyi, 6'4", 315 pounds, the number 115 player in the nation, knocking on the door for 100. Rivals 100 offensive tackle Tate Ratledge, a 5-star, the 13th ranked player in the nation. We got him at 6'5", 295. I think he's gone up actually since that measurement. And then Rivals 100 offensive tackle, number 27 in the nation, Broderick Jones, 6'6", 300 pounds. Josh Braun told us that the message to him was that if I commit with me and Broderick and Tate, we're going to have one of the best young tackle bases in the nation. I think it's pretty hard.
Yeah,
to
what's
argue
vivid
that.
about that? You got 2 of the top 30 players in the country that are offensive linemen. But everybody's saying, hey, why are we focusing so much? But we mentioned this, and just to reiterate what we said last week, we got a chance of losing 5 guys next year in the offensive line. When you look at both tackles, our left guard, also maybe Ben Cleveland might go out. You never know, and then Wyatt graduate. So you got to replace these with some. We know these younger guys are going to step up, and then the next year you got Hill, Salyer, and Mays that could all come out too. So we really got to keep fortifying that position. And so I would look at the rest of our recruiting. We got to get a couple receivers. Maybe one more defensive back,
couple
hopefully,
tight ends, probably
2 tight ends and
couple backs,
2 backs.
Tailbacks.
You guys just keep talking there. Don't give me. So you already
You're
know.
not doing it fast enough, Coach. Come on,
All
chop. No, but to that point, I remember when we had a conversation about a year and a half ago. We're talking about running backs. And it's like, look, you've already got 4 in that room, 5 in that room, and Georgia's looking to take 2 more. You're like, you can't have 8 running backs. And Kirby was like, yes, I can, because I'm losing. They're not just graduating out. Some are leaving early, and it's you got to have them. So.
It's all new ball game now as far as early enrollees coming in and are better situated to play, and then the guys going out early in the draft. We're going to
when you were 200 players left early for the draft, juniors declared early.
Yeah, when you
like 300.
I think it was at least 200. Yeah.
Yeah,
but here's what's going to happen though: when you recruit 4- and 5-star players, you're looking at them being here 3 years.
That's correct.
I mean, that's just the way it is.
And they're saying it too, because I know Jake's had this quote numerous times. Hey, I'm going to play my next 3 or 4 years at whatever school. I'm looking to be here 3 years. And a lot of them are just flat, I'll be there 3 years.
That's what Broderick said. He said, look, the path is clear for me. He said, I think I can go to Georgia, get my 3 years in, and get to the league. And he said they're putting out first and second round guys. Devin Willock, who we spoke to the other day, another offensive lineman who visited recently, another huge guy, said the message from Sam Pittman is
how about those legs coming in? We just got some legs and fries and beans.
Yeah, you can slide that down this
way.
He
said the message from Sam Pittman is clear. He wants to make us first and second round picks because that's where the guaranteed money is, and that's about as good of a sell, I think, as you could send to a guy looking for his
we
chance.
finally had a first-round pick last year in Isaiah Wynn, and we're going to start having more. But
you might have 2 this year.
That's for sure. So we got any tough questions here?
We've got a few rolling in for sure. Let's go ahead and hop in on some
before
of
you
those.
do that, I want to mention
yeah, go ahead.
My bad.
When we had a chance to, I say we, my wife and I are celebrating our 26th wedding anniversary.
Really?
Congratulations.
Yes. She put up with me 26 years. And
been married since the Depression, eh?
Pretty much.
She's been depressed ever since.
I've been with you 5, and it's been damn near untenable.
Yeah. So
you've been with them? You get a 5-year, your 5-year star? Good.
Yeah, I think it's all the heroin she does. It really helps mellow her out. It makes me look better. But so we celebrated 26th wedding anniversary. I'm like, honey, where do you want to go for dinner? And this is the reason we've been together 26 years. She goes, oh, I don't know, wherever you want to go, honey. And so I start naming a couple places, and they all get shot down. And then she goes, why don't we go to Academia? Said, yes, we could do that. So we went to Academia and had a wonderful meal. Academia Brewing Company. I need to tweet out the beers I had because those were fantastic. I had a flight, again, it's just –
wife ended up driving you home on your anniversary.
Well, she could have. Especially in that nice, she thinks my Ford Explorer is too big, but when you can move the seat back, move the seat up and move the gas pedals forward, oh, my goodness.
The treats just keep coming, man.
You see why we do the show here, folks. But quick shout out to Academia Brewing Company for a fantastic anniversary dinner. It was just one of the best. I had the Cerebus sandwich. It's the 3-meat sandwich. It is... You can't get that anywhere else in the country. Go to Academia Brewing Company, have a fantastic beer. The Noctua is one of my favorites, and try their Cerebus sandwich. You'll be very pleased. She had a salad, and it was gigantic. She had to take the whole thing home pretty much. So get a chance to swing by there. Hit up some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a couple rolling in here. Malcolm McClung here with a good one. A lot of people have been asking this one. Who do y'all think we will land between Tank Bigsby, Zach Evans, or Kendall Milton? And that's a really, obviously, a lot of people concerned about what Georgia's going to do with that running back spot this year. I'm going to go with Milton as the guy that I think you're out in front for right now. I think that he's probably the surest bet in this group. Evans, I'm putting him a tier below that because, look, Bama landed his guy, Damian George, an offensive tackle. I do think that that's going to play a role. I think that he was kind of leaning that way anyway. That just kind of bolsters their chances. He's not set to make a decision anytime soon, though, so that does bode well for everybody else. Another thing to consider, and I've spoken to someone very close to this about Evans particularly, he did not list any of the Texas schools in his top 5. But watch out for Texas still. Don't write off the Longhorns just because they didn't make the list. There is still some scuttle that could come back into focus there. And then Bigsby, I don't see them moving back in that direction right this second. Could be a plan B guy down the line, but not something I see them doing right this moment.
Tell us about Kendall Milton. There's a
Kendall
lot
Milton. Listen. The thing about it is, I love this guy. 6'5" or 6'1". 210, 220 pounds. Just built
5-star running back.
5-star running back, Clovis, California. You're going to pull him from across the country if he comes here. Huge get. And
looks like Todd Gurley. If he walked in the room, you'd just say, hey, Todd.
Yeah. we've talked about, I think that this is a guy who brings something different to Georgia's backfield. You got a guy to replace Elijah Holyfield in Kenny McIntosh, and I think that you've got these smaller speedster types with James Cook, and you've got this kid is more in the vein of Zamir White, and maybe even a little bit larger than Zamir was coming out of high school. So I think he's a powerful guy. I think he brings a new dynamic.
So he's a McIntosh with DeAndre Swift speed.
He got good quick.
Yeah.
He got good quickness
Absolutely.
too.
Absolutely.
I'll take that 6 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I do like.
And he visits this weekend.
Yes, his official visit this weekend. Now I did mention yesterday we put up the war room. A lot of scoop over there. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that I see him committing this weekend. I don't. I think that he's a guy who will take his full slate of visits before he makes a decision.
Gotcha.
But that is the
we went
feeling
to.
right
What does
now.
he go to LSU first and then here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, LSU was 2 weeks back, I think, and then this weekend to UGA, and he's got a couple more coming up.
That was another thing he told us about a month ago, that he was coming here on the 14th. So, good job on that.
And
we'll keep you another week.
And don't forget too, he had Oklahoma very squarely in his consideration. They just picked up a commitment into last week from Seth McGowan, a 4-star running back. So dominoes starting to fall. Maybe now Milton beginning to look away from Oklahoma. Process of elimination says maybe Georgia.
And you got to like the fact that the guys will be recruiting him pretty hard this weekend. His actual offensive lineman. So I think that bodes well for Georgia's chances.
Dennis Wood points out Milton has gone to Ohio State too. I forgot about that one. He did. Thank you, Dennis. Let's see. Ronnie Brown says, Jake, does it seem like more kids are committing before the summer? Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think that you're into the summer now. I think that you're seeing more guys wanting to commit really before the season starts. And I think that that's just something that's been impressed upon them by coaches by and large. They want to go ahead and get the pressure off of these kids, go ahead and have them focusing on their senior season and not having recruiting hangover.
Well, we've seen the evolution of the early signing date now, and we've had a couple recruiting cycles to be able to everybody to be able to evolve on how to handle it, as far as the early official visits that you can take, having the official visits during the season. It used to be nobody'd ever do that. You'd always visit in December and January because you're signing in February. So the fact that they got a good feel for when to bring the kids in. So you just got to remember that if we just take February and move it back to December, then the same thing's happening on these commitments. We're a couple months earlier because of they're trending toward the December signing date, and a lot of these guys have already made these visits that they normally wouldn't have made. So, in the case of Milton, he was here for spring practice. Now he's coming back for his official visit. So, I just don't ever remember over the years that many kids around the country that make unofficial visits to, unless they were going to Ole Miss when Freeze was there, from that far away, you know what I mean? And we're just seeing a lot more of that now because of this early signing day. And then if they like it, then they come back for their official.
I got a good one here from Willie Gray. This is not necessarily a question, but I'll put it to you, Coach, and see what you've got to say on it. Willie says, my biggest concern this year is this young coaching staff and the in-game adjustments necessary to beat elite teams. Do you have any concerns about the youth on this staff?
Who's that, Willie? What?
Willie Gray.
The only thing, it's good to have questions like that, and certainly I respect that, but I also know that that these guys would not be in that position if Kirby didn't feel good about it. You know what I mean? That he's seen them under fire. He's been around them. He's also going to be with them. So, I think experience is good, but I think talent really supersedes that. You see in the case of Alabama now, they've got a very young defensive coordinator that Nick has put in there. I think it just goes with who you feel comfortable with, how they're able to you've had chance to see them grow a little bit. For instance, Kirby told me a couple years ago, and this is a little nugget here, I was talking about spring practice, about, the spring game, how are you going to break up the coaches? Are you just going to let the coordinators call the game, because you've got two teams? He said, no. He said, I want to hear some of these younger guys, how they do. We're going to split up the teams and give them some authority and see how they react. And so you're building, he was able to hear Coley when Chaney was a coordinator. He was able to hear Schumann when Coach Tucker was here, and then last year he was able to hear Lanning when Tucker was here. So I'm saying there's a good.
I did not know that.
Player development is one thing, but coaches development too. But I get back to this one thing, and I'm gonna hit the button here and then stop. But our system is our system, and you can bring a guy in that has a lot more experience and has been different places, and you would have to teach him our system because Kirby ain't changing that system and that call, and you'd lose something in the changeover as compared to moving guys up like Lanning and Schumann, who know it day in and day out. They've both been coaching it for a long time. They know every call. They know every check. And then you got the head man who's been calling it since Caesar went over the Rubicon. And so I just think that's a great question, but I hope I answered it.
No, it's a good question.
He's not near as worried about the youth as he is people knowing what to do and player relations. And he brought in a seasoned secondary coach that can help make the secondary adjustments to augment these guys. Now, offensively, you lost Chaney, but all of these guys have been in the mix in setting up the game plan. Coach McGee's always set up the running game. Coach Coley set up the passing game and then worked with Coach Chaney, and then Pittman kind of looks in, and then we've got Hankton in there too, and now Todd Hartley brings in another guy that's been around Coach Rick and been up at Marshall when they were really throwing the ball well. So I think our staff certainly is a little younger, and we lost some firepower, but the potential there is really out, like a rocket ship. I believe it. And I always tell this once a year, okay?
All right.
How would you like to have a kamikaze pilot that had flown 40 missions? He got good experience, but he can't pull the trigger.
Yeah, exactly. I want to make 2 points about that. I think you nailed it. I think people forget when they had the coordinator changeover, a lot of people said, oh, well, he reached out to Enos, he reached out to this guy, and those guys didn't come. So a lot of people think that Coley might have been his second, third, fourth choice. That is incorrect. I'm telling you right now, that was his choice from the beginning. Same thing when it comes to Dan Lanning and Glenn Schumann. There were a lot of, he's going this guy for defensive coordinator, that guy for defensive coordinator. Those were his guys from the jump. There's a reason he wanted them. And I want to hypothesize or postulate a different take on the youth versus experience. And to Willie's point, yeah, I like having a coach back there who's, this is 30th year, and he can adjust on the fly. He's seen everything. There is an advantage to that. But at the same time, you can also get stuck in your ways. Sometimes you're maybe not a little as amenable to, like, hey, I know this is going to work. It worked in 1967. By God, it's going to work today. Maybe it doesn't. So, again, I'm not saying one way is better. You can look at it two different ways. A new coach might be more versatile, open up new ideas. But at the same time, inexperience can kill you. And if something's going bad, if you haven't fought your way out of it, it could go south on you quick.
Nobody was giving Jim Chaney any passes for all the experience under his.
That's a good point.
Well, here's a great analogy here. 3 years ago, Oklahoma, Bob Stoops retired, and they had to make a decision what are they going to do, and they gave the job to Lincoln Riley. And as good a job as Lincoln has done at Oklahoma, he was kind of a journeyman assistant coach because of where he was coaching. He took over East Carolina program, was struggling, but he did some good things stat-wise. But he knew the system. He knew the system that Bob wanted to implement, the one that Mike Leach brought in there when he first took the job in 2000. So that's what he wanted to do. And Coach Smart here knows that these guys know our system. So he's putting Dan Lanning in here, knows how our system, and so does Coach Schumann. And then Coley has been around some good dances here now. I mean, if you just went there and said Alaman left with the whole left hand, back to your partner with a right left grand, he's been at LSU when they won the national championship. He's been at Florida State when they won the national championship. So he's been in the room with Jimbo Fisher for a long time. And then he went to Miami on his own. They were on probation. Hey, look, they had handcuffs down there. But he did develop some good quarterbacks, and he recruited well. And there's no question when Kirby had a chance to lose him 2 years ago, he made the move.
Jimbo.
He made the move to keep him, knowing that maybe Chaney might be leaving. So there's a good example of coaching development along with player, and I just feel good about the fact that the other coaches on the staff are going to supplement them. But you talk about a guy with a resume of coaching good quarterbacks. You go back to Jamarcus Russell. You go to the quarterback at Florida State, Jameis Winston. You go down there, Brad Kaya at Miami.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's been around some talented quarterbacks, and so
he's done okay with Jake Fromm.
And plus, he's got some guys that this year – our offensive line is going to set up the play action game. We're not going to be throwing the ball that much just to be throwing it, but when we throw it, we're going to be jugular, man. We're going to hurt people because they're going to have to stop the run.
Yeah, give me JJ catching the ball on that.
And I like
20 yards out.
I like our receiver room a lot better than I did 2 weeks ago.
Really? So the Cager getting on campus really helps?
Yeah, I was thinking we were in the rooms to go there, but now we're set with some real good furniture in there.
Love it. We'll give a big shout-out to Athens Ford for being a sponsor of our podcast and our website. Be sure you swing by athensford.com. Check out all the vehicles. They have 1,000 vehicles over there that you can check out. That is a lot of cars that you can pick up from athensford.com. I always talk about how great the actual dealership is when you walk in and how courteous they are. And I told you how they saved my butt when I was going on vacation a couple weeks ago. I like right now if you go to their website, there is a 360-degree picture. You can see what the inside of it looks like. You can see where the service place is. They have some vehicles that you can check out. It's just a neat thing. We can actually see it firsthand without actually having to walk in there. And, of course, they have service specials you need to check out. And Athens Ford is, again, the only place that you can get a lifetime powertrain warranty on any new vehicle or any pre-owned vehicle under 80,000 miles. So a lifetime powertrain warranty, you cannot beat that. And, again, they have 1,000 vehicles out there for you to choose from. So if you want a certain color, you want a certain the pack, what do you call them?
A package?
The details package, all that stuff on it. Yeah. So if you want all that, you can. They'll have it for you, and you don't have to say, "Can you order this in? I'll be back in 2 weeks." They got it. And of course, if you've seen those Raptors, the F-150 Raptors that they have out there, you're going to reach for your checkbook. I can guarantee it because those things they're just a beautiful, beautiful vehicle. I mean, we have one here, but it's nothing. The new ones are just lights out. It's just a beautiful truck. I mean, it hurts your truck bone. The truck bone in your body just aches when you don't have one of those Raptors. So you need assuage your truck bone and go out and get a Ford F-150 Raptor out at our friends at Athens Ford.
All right, we got some more questions rolling in. Keith from Oklahoma checking in. He says, "Go
Keith.
Dogs, yes sir." Throwing out a big shout out to Sam Pittman here. A lot of questions rolling in for you, Coach. So definitely want to touch on.
Yeah,
those.
I won't take as long as I did on that experience thing, but I think I really covered that.
This one comes to us via Twitter from UGA alum ADS 95. Chad, he says, question for Coach Donnan. What can we expect from Julian Rochester this season? Do you think he steps up to be a big-time defensive tackle for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, I've been happy with the way Julian has progressed under Coach Scott and under the tutelage of Coach Smart. He's had an up-and-down career, but I really think the one thing that all coaches tell your team, whether it's high school, is, hey, your senior year is what you build up for, and this is what it's all about. And I think the leadership that he's shown out there, and he has the ability to be when you got 10 other guys with him out there, he really does make plays. You know what I mean? He's not an individual standout that's going to just bull rush in, stop, but he really understands his role. And I think he'll have a good, solid year. And I think David Marshall getting back out there is going to solidify our line and make these other guys better because of his work habits and his day-to-day stuff. And we got some really good-looking young freshmen. We went over those guys last week.
Definitely.
And, I think our team as a whole, defensively, the collective unit, might not have as many overbearing studs, but it's going to be a really solid group that's going to be hard to score on.
Damian Cox here with a good one. He says, I want to know about Tyreke Mcgee. I hear about all the other defensive backs, but never him. What do you guys think? Bring the show to Anderson, South Carolina. Damian, we appreciate the shout-out.
I think the point with Tyreke is just that he's another, just like Julian Rochester. He knows the scheme. He can play star. He can play safety. He can play free safety. He can play corner. He's a jack-in-the-box type. He can do anything, So, but he's not an overwhelming talent to go out there and be a so-called first-team guy, for instance, compared to some of these other guys, overwhelming physical skills. So he gives you a good guy for special teams, a Johnny on the spot, jump in there and play. He'll make a lot of big plays for us on defense because he knows what to do, and he makes the other team beat him. But I think the reason you don't hear about him so much is you're hearing about Tyson Campbell and Stokes and all these other guys, and then, Stevenson's coming in. But I like McGee, and I remember last spring we talked about 2 springs ago how good a spring he had, and he played pretty well last year.
I can't agree with you more. I think that Tyreke is a plug-and-play guy, any of the positions, super smart, and that's his best attribute. Has never been an overwhelming athlete, a very good athlete, don't get me wrong, but not a 10-3 guy like a Tyson Campbell.
Yeah, give him a run support.
But knows what to do.
Yeah,
You're not going to get
solid tackler.
Try run past him. Good luck with that.
Thing about him, he's a victim of Kirby Smart coming in and elevating the talent in the secondary as far as the caliber of players. It's not the fact that he's not good enough. These other guys are coming in here just to have a little bit more talent. But he's got, on the other end, experience is good in a lot of ways too. I was talking about in the coaching. But in our system, let's just say you want to run a few more coverages, and maybe these younger guys aren't quite as adept at making the adjustments, but you put him out there, whatever the call is, he's not going to make a mental mistake.
Absolutely.
And we saw a mental mistake kill us against LSU when safety and corner weren't coordinated and they hit the deep pass on us.
Lynn McLean Rich here with a really good one here. I am interested to see what you have to say. She says, Coach D, what do you see as the biggest obstacle for the upcoming season?
Well, that's a pretty tough question there.
That's a good one.
When you say the biggest, I would say I'm going to give you the Socrates answer, know thyself, is that you know what you can do and you know what you can't do as a team. So make sure what you do really well, you do well, and what you can't do, you improve on. You know what I mean? And that's what happened to our team 2 years ago. We were terrible in the red zone. We couldn't stop the red zone, and we got a lot better. Last year was emblematic of that. So now, this year, we got to know how to hold the lead. We got to know how to keep attacking and understand that everybody's going to give us our best shot. But we got all these games at home where we're 12-0 in our last 12. We got Florida down there, where we've really – so just understand that if we play like we can play and don't beat ourselves, it'll be hard for us to lose a lot of games, more than 1 or 2 games, because most games are lost. So I would just say the biggest obstacle is handling success, knowing you got to give them your best shot every week, and don't worry about who's playing and all that. Just go out there and do your job.
See, I think a lot of people don't understand the mental aspect when it comes to some of these football players. You practice, you do it right in practice, you got it down, you get confident. Sometimes you get overconfident. You're playing a team that you should beat, and you kind of just throw your helmet out there. Now, a lot of people would give their left arm just to run out onto the field. These guys, that's their job, and you don't attack your job every day with a crazy amount of enthusiasm that, say, someone else might. So sometimes you get complacent, and I think that might be the biggest fear, especially when these other teams, there's like 7 teams that have a bye week before they play Georgia.
Yeah.
Those teams are coming in rested. You might be banged up a little bit, and you're looking at the guy across from you going, I'm a lot better than you. But if you just think you are and you don't, like the coach says, you don't do what you do really well, that kid will whoop your tail. He's got something to prove. You don't. You are now the hunted. And these teams are going to give you their best bet. It's something Alabama's had to deal with. It's something Clemson has to deal with. Ohio State.
What I like about Kirby is, as a CEO, he's very good about recognizing things that need to be, changed a little bit, or things that need to be stay the same and all that. But our staff really does a good job of going out and communicating with other staffs and visiting with them about things that they do well that we didn't do well, and learning from that and watching them. And the thing that I always told our team, and I hear Kirby saying it too, is we know what won for us last year and we know what got us beat. So we've got to work on what got us beat and get better at it, and what won for us, we got to continue to be good at that. So, and all you got to do in the LSU game is look at it and, hey, as good as they played, we didn't play good enough mentally. Too many mental errors, too many busts, and we played tight. And Texas game, we didn't have all our guns. But I just think big obstacle is knowing what you can do and taking care of it. And I like this team right here that's going to strut their stuff out there at Commodore Stadium or whatever you call that place. Is going to look really good in their unis, man. I'm talking about those 70 guys up there. They could run out there on the Tennessee Titans field and be on the wrong field, and they'd probably think a good-looking group, man.
Speaking of what works for you.
Yeah, I want to mention some of the reviews that have come in for our friends over at Aaron Overhead Doors. These are, again, one of the best companies out there. Huge Georgia fans. These people support the Georgia Bulldogs, and they support us. So I want to mention that some of the reviews I saw, best service from start to finish, the confirmation service calls, the text messages about my technician on his way, to a very courteous, very courteous and professional fast technician. All in all, a great service and a wonderful company. So, that's people just talking about how great they are from back to back. 5 stars is not enough. What a great experience. Excellent in service before, during, and after. If you're noticing a theme, from the beginning to the middle to the end, that constant contact, that make it worth it. Amazing customer service. I would give Aaron Overhead Doors 10 stars if I could. I was blown away by the exceptional customer service I received from Matt. After a catastrophic failure of our door and opener, I contacted multiple companies for a quote. From the initial phone call to the first appointment, it's clear that I was dealing with a company that values ethics, morals, and fair, reasonable business practices. Again, from the first call, notice what they do right. It's customer service. They do it from the minute you call them, through setting an appointment, which you can book online, letting you know when the service technician's on his way. The service technician is an actual employee, not some contractor. Through the end of it, hey, are you satisfied with it? Is there anything else we can do? We're going to clean up. You won't even know that we were here, except that your garage door is installed or working, or is everything's
looking better.
Everything's looking better like it should. Again, that's just front to back. If there is a problem, and I'll tell you, Ryan Lucia out there, if they're not doing something well, he attacks it.
And he wants to know, too. That's the thing about it as well.
This guy goes to conferences. You think, why are you going to an overhead door conference? It's a garage door. Well, guess what? There's new technology. There's new ways to install it. There's new ways to go after customer service. This guy is constantly educating himself and his staff on how to be better. They're already the best. If you look at all the reviews, they're through the roof. But is the guy who is not satisfied with just winning your business. He wants to win your business and your friends and anybody you know. So give a big shout out to Aaron Overhead Doors for being a sponsor of our show. Also, I want to mention Your Pie. Fantastic meal. I had one out there the other day. It's kind of a Friday.
That's become your go-to.
Well, I was saying it's Friday afternoon. It's like, well, hopefully no news will break. And you swing by Your Pie, and it's just a great celebration to the end of the week. Although Saturdays and Sundays are kind of work days for us anyway. But if we need a chance, swing by these 60 different locations of Your Pie. You will get the best pizza you've ever had in your life. If not, Jake will buy you a new one.
They're opening up a new one up on 316 up there beside those theaters about halfway up between here and Lawrenceville. Did you know that?
No kidding. Oh, yeah.
I was
surprising.
really chapped when I rode over there and thought it was getting ready to open. The guy said, it's going to be a few more days. I said, okay. But I pulled off just thinking that, you saw the sign for Your Pie. But, hey, I agree with you. Now, we got some good groceries at Champy's and Academia and Your Pie. I mean that's 3 days a week. What are we going to do the other 4?
Go back.
Just circle back.
Do it twice. You won't eat the same meal twice at any of them. So you get a chance, swing by Your Pie. And if I was thinking of that one that's opening out there on 316, that store is going to print money.
Oh, absolutely.
That place is going to be packed. It's going to be fantastic. And I do appreciate everybody who sends us notes saying, hey, I tried Your Pie for the first time. I loved it. we're trying to convert as many people into Your Pie customers as possible. They're opening up 50 more locations. This isn't like one or two. 50 more locations. That's how successful this franchise is. So if you're looking for a career change, you might want to get your franchise.
Fred Sylvester here with a good question. He says, do you think Georgia's offense will be better in the red zone this year? Do you think that we'll see an improvement in the red zone for the Georgia offense?
Well, it's all relative on what the score of the game is and how good your defense. A lot of times 3rd and 5 in the red zone when you got a good kicker like us and your defense is playing well, you run the ball with the idea maybe, hey, you might have 4th and short, whereas if your defense isn't doing that well and you don't have that great a kicker, 3rd and 5 is a pass. So it just depends on how our defense play. I've talked about I think our defense is going to be markedly improved in a lot of areas, but red zone we should be outstanding with the way Jake can throw the fade to Holloman. The getting Pickens in should help us in that area too. And we've got Werner, who's really good as an underneath guy, and then you got, you just watch the way that our backs run in space. So I think we'll be okay for sure against the really good teams, and then the great teams, you're always going to struggle because the field's condensed. It's harder to pile drive it in there against the really good teams. So
I think you should be able to get some push up front with that group.
And the thing you always got to remember is teams in the red zone, they hadn't stopped you to that point. They're going to take chances, and you better make sure that you have a hat on the hat. And in the game against Florida, we went over that goal line situation. We did a poor job of blocking their backside pursuit and got hit from the backside, but we'll learn from that. But that was one stop that they made, but they didn't do that great the rest of the game. But I think our red zone will be better, both sides, offense and defense.
Mike Wood here looking for another area of improvement. He says, do you think the defense will be better at QB hurries and sacks, causing havoc, as Kirby Smart calls it?
No question. Have you ever just been in a situation where you looking at a bug, and let's just say it's a roach, and you really want to stomp on that thing to make sure you get it and it doesn't bother you anymore? That's what our defense is going to do. They're going to roach you. We're going to go in there, and we're going to make that first initial hit with a good plant and stop the run, and then we're going to cut these War Daddy wide rush guys, and we're going to get a good push in the middle, and then having David Marshall to run some of that inside stunts. And like we said, for people that listen to the show, we're going to be better in the secondary playing man coverage, so we're going to get some zone pressures and some better man pressures too. So I would say unequivocally, if you don't get anything else out of this show, we will do better at rushing the passer than we've done since Kirby's been here.
Malcolm McClung says you got to call it raid. Going after
let's go for the raid. Yeah, hey. Raid, but hey, we're gonna roach them, man.
Ronnie Brown says, Jake, what are some of the things that stick out about UGA when talking to recruits versus other schools? It's a very interesting question, Ronnie, and I think that you are hearing some differences. One of the things I think that you're hearing consistently is that, this is a team that knows how to win, and you're hearing that about the Alabamas of the world, about the Clemsons of the world. These are
you got to prove it.
The elite programs. Kids have come around on that notion about Georgia. Georgia is a team that separated themselves, and additionally, they are putting out pros at a very high level, and that's something that stands out to all of these guys as well. If you can combine those two things, that makes you that puts you in that elite tier when it comes to recruiting, and I think Georgia's done a great job on both of those right now.
Yeah, that's good. Plus facility enhancement, plus a degree from a top school, plus a staff that really cares about you, the things they do to develop. Just for instance, today, I don't know if it's today or last week, Kirby Smart thinks about so many things, and I know he wouldn't mind me sharing this, but he's bringing in a guy to talk to our team about distracted driving. People that text or whatever they might be do that and so many people have things happen to them that affect their lives. And, I think that's something our players need to talk about and hear from somebody about what's the repercussions of what can happen to you there. And, you talk about motivating them and all that, but how many would think about bringing in a guy to talk to your team about, hey, this is what can happen to you if you distract yourself when you're driving.
Well, I appreciate that because they all live here.
Yeah.
Would you think he would? Don't you think it's a good idea by him?
It's a great idea. Hell, to me, it should be a mandatory course at UGA if you're a student here.
I agree.
I mean, the vehicles out there now are safer than they've ever been in the history of automotion. These cars, they have the brake detection, impact detection. They automatically slam on the brakes for you. You got front impact, side impact, all these crazy airbags to keep you from dying, You're safer than you've ever been, but we're seeing fatalities start creeping back up because people are distracted. They're not hitting the brakes, when they're driving.
Cars are getting smarter, drivers getting dumber.
Exactly. And this is not a shot against a athlete, but if you're, a guy that's you're a celebrity, all of a sudden you're getting text, and notifications on your Instagram from other celebrities, agents when they go pro and stuff like that. It would be easy for them to get distracted. No one's calling me, no one's texting me, and I'm not getting into that stuff. But these guys are superstars. I can see why they might be distracted. And I think Kirby bringing them in, saying, "Look, here's what can really happen," or bringing somebody in to teach them that. I think that's fantastic. Again, I mean, not even from a football standpoint, not even from protecting his player standpoint, just from a damn good, hey, your kids, I told your parents I was going to watch out for you when you came here. I'm going to try to make sure that you leave here in one piece, healthier and smarter than when you got here.
And speaking of watching out for you, that's another thing. While both of you were talking, it made me think of the focus that kids say Georgia puts on life after football. Yeah. They say, the connections you're going to make here, the opportunities, being close to Atlanta to get these internships. We've got alumni and tons of major businesses willing to help you take the next step. I think that is very, very key. Having the great alumni base is something that has benefited Georgia a great deal, and kids always mention that.
I do like Kirby's concentration on that. It bugs me to ever see a former Georgia player looking for a job. You don't see it very often, but I like knowing that, hey, if a guy came to Georgia, he gave his all for you. He may not have been a starter, but every one of those guys has a role to play. 85 scholarships. Even if you didn't start a game, you got pounded in practice. You worked on the scout team. You made the team better. They couldn't have done what they did without you. And they have a good education. So if he's a Georgia graduate, folks, and you're an alumni, heck,
yeah, they'd say to
hire
him, especially in-state kids, say, hey, where would you go to school if you weren't playing football? I mean, you spend a lot of time when you're not playing football with other people, and, how are you going to interact with them? You go off, leave and go across the country. These people haven't been brought up like you, and it's different.
Yeah, I like
it's an adjustment.
Chuck Ward points out that wasn't a distracted driving and that wreck that killed Rob Bramblett and his wife.
I think it was not, actually.
The guy was actually asleep.
I think they determined that it was not. I mean, I guess that's a form of distracted driving if you want to consider it.
And what does Kirby Smart do? He actually has the whole thing, the sleep thing set up.
Yeah.
They have the sleep room set up. And then if you ever go to a Georgia camp, and you hear Ron Corson get up and talk to these kids, these 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, he will give them a speech about getting sleep. It's got to be dark. It's got to be cold. It's got to be distracted. Don't leave your phone on, and he says, here's how you get it. And he explains the physiological benefits of,
as much as you talk about eating, sleeping, too. And that's another thing on this show that you brought out a couple years ago, that Kirby instituted a sleep room over at on our campus with Ron, where they had these, you can just go over there and got these recliners and everything in there, and blankets,
freezing
and all that.
And warm blankets, man.
So I mean, that's did you know that?
I would like to go view that one for myself.
Sleep room.
I'd like to go
let's see if anybody would bid on that. We'll have have a chance to go sleep on the recliners. Sleep with the dogs.
Chuck Ward here with another good one. He says, Coach, what do you think of Roddy being on the way to the gym when the Braun commitment broke? Is there
Is there
a new restaurant that serves key lime pie called The Gym somewhere in Athens?
If he's working out at 10 o'clock.
That's the only time I go. To be fair.
Where's the name of this gym?
Athens First.
Okay.
Or First Athens. It used to be the Omni. Now it's
That's
over.
a bank, man.
It's over in over Watkinsville.
Like Coach Bill Dooley used to say, hey, I'm going to give me a businessman's workout. I said, what's that? It's a sauna.
Oh, I wish they had that. That'd be awesome. But I usually go to the gym at like 12 o'clock. I usually go from like 12 to 1:30. And because all the news that's going to happen has happened, and I'm thinking it's a Monday night.
You go to 12 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
When do you sleep?
Right as I come home, I get a shower, go straight to bed. Get up and back at work by 9 o'clock.
But, news can happen without you being around. I mean, you were at the beach and we got him. I mean, hey.
Well, I'm just saying that. So if I was
even that's not safe, though. Remember, Jermel Walthour dropped it at like 12:45, I think, one night. So.
Exactly. Well, no, and Jonathan Abram. Y'all have 11:45. So I'm thinking, okay, we're good. It's like 10:30. Again, the one time I get out of my routine, I'm walking to the gym. Hey, just come. You let me know.
It must have been good. What time did you call the guy?
I sprinted out to the car and tried to find my recorder, which I didn't have, so I had to write down everything freehand. But I mean, I ran out of there.
That's the way to be, Johnny on the spot.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't know it if he hadn't told me. So I'm in there trying not to die.
It's good for you to have that kind of relationship.
Hey, yeah, you gotta love a boss that'll get down in the trenches with you. I appreciate that.
What else you got?
Malcolm McClung here. Very interesting question. He's looking for some predictions early on. He says, how many predictions do you think that? How many yards do you think Swift will have this year? How many yards do you think Swift? I bet he tops 1,000.
Just depends on the competition. If he has to play in the fourth quarter of more than 7 games, I would say he gets over 1,000 easy. But if he doesn't, if we have some of those runaway where he's not playing in the second half much, it's hard to – unless he just makes some long runs, which he's capable of. Last year he had a little bit of a situation with that sports hernia and everything where he really didn't get the good – he really looked good at the end of the year, but all year it looked like he didn't have that plant, But I think the thing that Coley will have him too is we'll have some really good stuff out of the backfield and screens to him, and he'll make a lot of overall – he'll be an overall back, with a lot of
total yardage.
Total, it'll be. I could say him getting 1,500 with the passing and.
I was going to say 1,300, but 400 of it is actual passing yardage.
Sure.
Of course, he catches it behind the backfield, runs for 30 yards, and they call it a 30-yard.
And the other thing is what's going to happen with White, because you're going to have to if White's fresh and can go, both of them better not running every down, so
give me James Cook for 800 yards.
Yeah, but we might have a conglomerate there of three guys together, 2,000.
And I think that DeAndre Swift doesn't need 1,000-yard
Certainly
rusher.
not.
I mean, the pros know what he can do. I don't think he needs hey, I got to prove myself this year. I think he can say, look, guys, here's what I can do. Watch the tape. I don't think he's got anything to prove to anybody. So I don't think and some guys, I think it would have helped,
Elijah.
I'm thinking.
I mean, he broke 1,000.
He did, but I'm thinking guys further back than that. When you had that trio of running backs here, it would have been nice for all of them to have 1,000 yards, and they can mark it off their, check the box if you want.
Yeah. All you got to do is check the box and watch the Auburn run in the.
That's what I'm saying.
He just showed those guys his tail lights.
What he does with his change of direction at speed. Okay, nobody else is doing that. We're going to draft him. So I don't think he don't need 1,000 yards, but I think he gets over when you look at his total yards.
How about Auburn? So we're talking about playing Auburn. They got 2 of the top 6 D linemen in the pro draft right now.
Strong. Derek Brown, not a surprise. I want to wrap up on this one because it was presented as a comment.
Put the wrap on it.
But I'm going to rephrase it as a question. Dylan Brooks says, Coach, do you think you could average 4 yards per carry behind the offensive line?
In a New York minute. Hey, man, I could run.
Yeah.
Hey, some of my best plays were naked bootlegs. No, I was not. We had a good backfield. I didn't run that much, but I could run. I mean, I played in high school. We ran the single wing, so I had to run some. I was scared, but I ran. But that coach would call a play and put it in there. Pete Jarvis started blocking back, and then I was a tailback. They'd call 98 or 99, which was a tailback sweep. And I said, hey, Pete, I'm a little tired right now. Why don't you run 94, or something. But I really was not that physical a runner, but I enjoyed playing tailback because it helped me in college because I had to run more than I wanted to. But if I hadn't have played that, I would have never developed that. But I would say I could average 4 yards, and I think anybody you put out there that can walk and chew gum could average 4.
I would agree. I would have to agree with that.
You got to be thinking Tate Crowder's like, oh, now you get this offensive line. Come on, man. It's like, this would have been great for me a couple years ago.
All right, we got a bunch more questions rolling in, but we'll have to save those for next week. Roddy, hit it.
Big shout-out to Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Your Pie, Academia Brewing Company, Cable East, 365 Game Day, of course, for letting us be on their Facebook page, and, of course, Champions here on Baxter Street, and our good friends at 11 Live, who had a great interview with Dan Quinn the other day. You need to check out the Falcons head coach doing push-ups, for
Alice Glaze, man.
Alice Glaze, that guy. And, of course, Wes Blankenship and all the great folks over at 11 Live. Big shout-out to them for being great sponsors and corporate partners when it comes to breaking news. There's not a better news organization in Atlanta other than 11 Live News, and they help us a lot, especially when we break news. They come right behind it with all the supporting documents, so be sure to follow 11 Live on Facebook and 365 Game Day. We will talk to you next Tuesday at noon.
Go raid the War Room.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.